At the end of last week's Torah portion, we heard the story of how Jacob was able to trick his father into giving him the blessing that was originally intended for Esau. As a result of that, the beginning of this week's Torah portion, Vayeitzei, starts with Jacob fleeing from his home of his parents and his brother, because he was afraid for his life for his brother Esau. The story goes on to where he meets his first two wives, Leah and Rachel, and the years that he had to work for their father in order to eventually get their hands in marriage, and then even more than that. And in this portion, we hear the story about Jacob essentially telling God that if he does some things for him, then he will serve him as his God, he will take him as his God, which seems like an incredibly arrogant perspective, especially coming from someone like Jacob, who we learned in last week's portion was such a righteous man.
The Torah used the word lemor, Vayidar Yaakov neder lemor. Jacob made a vow saying, and for sure the rabbis ask to whom he's saying so. Usually when God talked to Moshe, lemor, he is saying to him, go ahead and speak to the children of Israel. Here, Jacob made a vow, lemor. And the rabbis go to explain, Sheyehu tze'etza'av, meaning the children of Jacob, no dream le'et Sarah. They made a vow at a time of distress, time of sorrow. So there are two concepts we can learn from this idea of Jacob made in vow. First and foremost is a vow that come out of great stress. He's afraid. He is going to an unknown place. He's leaving his homeland. And it's a darkness, both physically and emotionally. So he made a vow and he asked God to help him. He said, I knew that you are with me, but I ask you to give me a special protection since I'm going to the state of the unknown. And even sometimes it's not recommended to make such a vow, because those vows, especially with God, a person must keep. But there are some situations that a person needs to do it. Imagine, God forbid, someone driving his car and all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, turn around, he's stuck in the middle of nowhere and is a smoke coming out of a car and he is in no way to get out of a situation. He said, God, if you let me out of this situation, I will do so and so. You wake up in a hospital and he is safe and alive. So in that sense, a person make a vow lemor with God, and it's basically some type of commitment, asking for protection and promising to follow up in that. But for sure is not a statement of arrogance in any way.
Every story, every word, and every letter in the Torah has meaning. And specifically with each of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob, all of them, there are stories about them digging wells. In Isaac's case, sometimes not finding water, sometimes finding water, but there's stories about them digging wells. What is the significance of those stories?
In my bar mitzvah, I recall me standing and telling people that we learn from the Parsha, the fact that Abraham dig a well and Isaac dig a well doesn't mean that Jacob depend on what the parents and grandparents did. Since I'm so many generation rabbi, I felt at that time in my bar mitzvah, since I'm 14th generation rabbi, so some people feel that it's a rabbi that came before me and such a great giant. And I felt, and by the way, that's my Torah portion, that yes, the fact that my great-grandparents and the grandfather and father, a great rabbi, it's great and wonderful, but I need to dig my own well. So Jacob, in a sense, dig his own well and is not depend only on the great accomplishment of his ancestors.